I'll start by saying I'm going to make this review as spoiler-free as possible, since I'm a big believer that horror is incredibly personal, and that your imagination is the wellspring of your greatest fears. As such, I won't include any footage of the horror in this video, because I think that by exposing you to the terrors within, it could diminish your experience. I've had a fascination with oil rigs for the longest time. The sheer brutality, stubbornness of building thousands of tons of hulking steel behemoth in the middle of the most improbable environment. The engineering marvel, the hubris. My earliest memories of a thalassophobia that I've more or less overcome is of imagining myself somehow awash in the turbulent 15-foot waves below an oil platform, surrounded by the barnacle-crusted legs reaching down forever into the frigid black water. So at first glance, this game appears to be some kind of bespoke personal gift to me, as if I had millions of dollars and went out and commissioned a game of my own choosing. It's a highly polished game from the excellent creative minds at British developers The Chinese Room. It's a high-fidelity, asymmetrical horror game, wrapped around the core of an essentially human story of love, loss, and redemption. But before I get too far, you probably want to know, what's it like? Still Wakes the Deep will be very familiar territory to anyone who played 2014's rather great Alien Isolation by Creative Assembly and Feral Interactive. You have to run and hide from a force much greater than you can overpower, while trying to make your escape in seemingly futile odds. But that was made 10 years ago, and Still Wakes the Deep wouldn't be much without some smart additions to elevate it. You play as Scottish electrician Kaz McCleary, who's on assignment to the Bear D oil rig in the North Atlantic, and who's about to have a very bad day. The first thing you'll notice are the wonderful Scottish accents, thick as a bowl of steaming oats, and very much recommending the use of subtitles. As a bonus, you get to learn some Scottish slang as you go.
To my rig?
I can sort this, right? I just need time.
Shut it, you clatty gobshite.
The next thing you'll notice is the prevalence of fucks given. Kaz probably drops more F-bombs than actual bombs were dropped during World War II, but it never feels gratuitous. Instead, it feels authentic and appropriate. I know if I was being chased through the halls of a collapsing oil rig by an unnameable terror, I'd be littering fucks all over the place too.
Fuck! For fuck's sake! Fuck!
Fucking please.
Fuck!
It helps that the voice acting is universally excellent, really placing you right on board the Bear D oil rig and bringing a believable humanity to anchor the more fanciful events going on all around you.
Christ, not this again.
The bear is already down to the bare bones, and Cadal are just going to make more cuts to get other rigs on the go.
I've never been on an actual oil rig, and probably never will, having long ago given up my dream of becoming a commercial diver. But I have been on one in my brain quite a number of times, and imagine that this is an accurate facsimile. As with any creative endeavour, everything that you see in this game is a human artifact, something born from the hard work and imagination of a group of talented creatives, and that alone makes it fun for me to root around like some sort of nosy voyeur. Perhaps I'm just weird, but I like observing things so much that I'd actually enjoy a non-horror, walking simulator game set on an oil rig in the North Sea, where I just turn up, go to work, and nothing happens. My boss is a dick, of course, but then I commiserate with my work colleagues over baked beans. I repair a manifold thingamajig, I install a whatchamacallit, and sleep in my bunk, satisfied with a decent day's work for a reasonable paycheck. Unreal Engine 5's capabilities are shown off to great effect here. The oil platform itself is all gritty, weathered steel, creaking off-kilter girders. You can basically feel the North Sea salt spray hitting you in the face. There are of course nice bits of environmental storytelling, but it's not strewn all over the place like a narrative tornado just went through. This is one of those games where there's a lot of downtime to pick up random audio recordings or indulge in random bits of lore. The designers have kept the pace fairly relentless, never allowing you much time to breathe. But what do you actually do? Because that was my big question going in. Is it a walking simulator? Well, I'd consider it a walking simulator plus. It has some parkour and simple environmental puzzles, some stealth, and some quick-time event action set pieces. It's kind of like riding a Disney dark ride, but every so often you get to turn pressure manifolds, employ a screwdriver, and engage in mild tests of dexterity and timing. It is very much an on-the-rails experience, and there isn't anything in the way of detours, the designers wanting to keep the experience tightly focused. Some of these things work better than others, and the extent to which they do will probably depend a lot on your personal preference. My least favourite sequences were the stealth and action ones, where one wrong turn or button press punished me with a reload screen. I actually enjoyed getting from A to B by parkour. I guess they can't all be winners, and thankfully the game changes up your assignments frequently enough that it never feels cumbersome or annoying. In fact, it's generally far from punishing, deferring instead to helping you through various hints and environmental cues. For instance, there are visual aids throughout the game, with the colour yellow marking the path forward. And here a quick note on fidelity. I think the problem with realism is, as you strive up the curve towards greater realism, you begin to notice the small things that stick out and ruin the illusion. No one, for example, questions why the platforms are somehow defying gravity and moving back and forth in Super Mario. The 2D aesthetic and game setting immediately clue you in that you can comfortably leave your disbelief at the door and still have a good time. But here in Still Wakes the Deep, realism rules, and small game-like contrivances like yellow markers tend to break you out of the spell that they're trying so hard to weave. Anyway, the point is there's always necessarily a balance between realism and game design paraphernalia that are required to make the gameplay flow, and I credit the Chinese Room here for getting that balance right most of the time. As I said, fear is very personal, so it's impossible to answer how scary this game is. I personally liked it best in the early stages when the game merely alluded to something horrible lurking in the dark. I was able to nurture a clammy sense of dread and allow my imagination to enter a terrible negative feedback spiral. But once the horror revealed its true form, even though it was well designed, my fear dial turned down a little, as if the magician had pulled back the curtain. That said, there's a lot of good fear fodder here. You've got claustrophobia, acrophobia, nyctophobia, thalassophobia, and deocophobia. You'll squeeze through impossibly tight spaces, perch atop tiny ledges hundreds of feet over the icy ocean, come close to drowning as you submerge below freezing, oil-slicked waters. If you've got a phobia, the game aims to exploit it to good effect. And I can't forget to mention the excellent soundtrack by Jason Graves. It has multiple layers of melancholy, distressed strings. It is at times heart-wrenchingly beautiful, and other times eerily unsettling. And then it juts up against the jarring dissonance of metallic banging, clacking, ticking and screeching effects, which is surely a nod to the twisted steel girders of the failing oil platform.
What are we there now, fella?
Doesn't fucking matter.
He's dead and you don't think that matters?
He was always gonna die. Boy, them. Always.
And, beneath all the chaos, Kaz is running from a different kind of demon too. Troubles in his rearview mirror, which you'll get glimpses of in brief flashback cutscenes. These are handled incredibly well, never really hitting you over the nose with the obvious emotional hammer, but giving you enough to pull the heartstrings taut. Still Wakes the Deep is an often intense and grueling, sometimes frustrating experience that never forgets to return to the human trauma at the root of the horror. It's expertly crafted with love, and a shining example of how to make a great survival horror game.